So in this session, we are going to look at strings. So I'll create in a new program. I'll call this string.py. So we've been using strings for a while, and let's just have a recap. So let's say we have first name, and remember I made mention of the fact that we can use either a double quote like we have over here for Kenneth, or we can use a single quote like this. And in both instances, first name and last name are both strings. So what we've been doing so far is to, for instance, print the data type of first name, and we can as well print the data type of last name. So if I should print this out and run this program, we are going to see that we have both of them as strings. Okay, so it doesn't really matter if it is in a single quote or a double quote like we have with first name and last name. However, in some circumstances, you'll be required to use either a single quote or a double quote. So let's say we have a variable message, and message is storing in something like this. So I'll say Kenneth Bruni. Let's say I have choices. So if you decide to print this one out, and let's say we have print, and I pass in the variable message. So let's print this one out, and we can see that we have message printed out over here, Kenneth Bruni's choices. So what if we want to actually have something like Kenneth Bruni apostrophe? So we have Kenneth Bruni's choices. Okay. Now, if you do this, clearly we can see that we are running into some problems over here, because you can see that we have some kind of underlining over here, which clearly shows that there's a problem. But then let's try and print this out and see. We are obviously going to get a syntax error, and this is what you find over here. So clearly Python sees this portion as a string, okay, and it doesn't see this as a string. So in order to rectify this is where we will need the double quotation mark. So we will have the double quotation mark outside this way, and now that we have the double quotation mark, you can see that we don't see any error signal being underlined over here. So if we should print, first of all, let me clear this, and if we should run this program, we are going to see Kenneth Bruni's choices. So we are clearly having the apostrophe S over here. Now let me show you another example, and let's say we have another variable called alerts, and this time around we want to print something like this is a warning. This is a warning message. All right, and let's assume we want to print this is a warning message in a quotation mark. Okay, so after printing this out, we want to see this is a warning message in a quotation mark. What we can do is, if you want this message, okay, to be in a single quote, then we will just have to bring a double quote before and after it, okay, which clearly simply means we are putting this strange statement or strange inside double quotation mark. So we have double quotation mark, and inside it we have a single quotation mark with a message over here. Now if I am to print alert, which I have over here, if I'm to print alert, you can see that we have this is a message, and clearly, as you can see, this is a warning message is in a single quotation mark. If we choose to put this in a double quotation mark, then in that case we will need to clear this up and put it out this way. So you have the double quotation mark, then outside it we are going to put out a single quotation mark. So we are going to have it this way, and if we should print this one out, clearly you can see that we have this is a warning message in a double quotation mark. So clearly these are the instances where you need a single quote for your string or a double quote for your string. Now the next thing I would want to show is formatted string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment these ones out. So I'll put out a comment over here, and we have formatting string. Okay. Now let's say we have a variable name. A name, I'm going to say Kenneth. And we have age. And for age, we have 20. This is actually a recap of what we did the last time. And remember, we had to cast this age int into a string. Okay, so this is what we printed out. And we did name. Whilst we are concatenating, we had to do something like this, and you had to pass this out in a string, or you needed to cast age in a string. And if you do it this way, you can print it out over here. But in this case, age has now been converted into a string. Remember I said this may not be the best way of handling it. And that's where we are going to use formatted string. So with formatted string, what it means is we are going to maintain the int nature or value as we have with age over here. And this is how we go about formatted strings. So there are basically two ways, I must say. So the first is to use positional arguments. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say print, and what I can do is I can put out this, okay, and I'm just going to say this is my, then I'm going to put the variable name over here. And in order to do that, I'm going to use the curly brackets, and I'm going to pass in the variable name. And I'm also going to pass in the variable age over here, years old. Okay, now when you do it this way, we are not quite done. Okay, so clearly this is what we are doing. We say this is my name. This name you have over here is representing this variable, okay, and this age is also representing this variable. So for the positional argument, you are going to call in a method over here. So you're going to do dot format, and this dot format is going to take in some parameters. So you're going to say name is equal to name, comma, and age is equal to age. So when I save this and I run this program, we have, this is my name. Okay, so let's change this to my name is name. Okay, so when you run this, you are going to say my name is Kenneth and I am 20 years old. Okay, now what we have over here, we haven't changed the data type of age. So if we are to print the data type of age over here, if you are to print the data type of age, when I run this, we are still going to have age as an int instead of casting it. So this is more or less a better way of handling things as far as putting out print statements are concerned. So this is the first method we can choose, and this is what we call the positional argument. And the name comes from the dot format, okay, because we have these arguments over here, and they are going to be based on positions. So you can see that name comes in first and age comes in second. Now the other one is clearly what we represent as formatted string, and we simply do that. I think that's a little bit simple to implement, and this actually works with I think higher versions of Python. I think with Python 3 you are good to go as far as using formatted string is concerned, but until then I think this was the conventional way of handling things of this nature. So with formatted string, we can simply put an F in front of the string statement, and we can pass in anything that we want to type in over here. So I can say my first name is, then just as we did over here, we're going to put out the curly bracket, and I'm going to pass in the variable name. So this is a variable name, and I can continue and say, and I'll put in this over here and pass in the variable age, years old. So with a formatted string, this is all that I need. I don't need to add in positional arguments as we have over here. And the only trick over here is I only needed to bring the letter F in front of the string. So if I should save this and run this program, we are going to have, this is my first name is Kenneth and I am 20 years old, as we have over here. And once again, if we decide to print out the data type of age, we are still going to have it as an int because we haven't done anything to it. Okay. All right. So this is what formatted strings are all about. So once again, I'm going to comment everything out over here and we are going to move on. All right. So all along, you see me do something like this. Name is equal to, and I'll put in the name variable over here. And we've seen print name. All right. And if I should run this code, it's going to print the name over here. This is the string being stored in this variable. Now, if I decide to come in here and do or bring the square brackets over here and pass in a parameter, let's say 0, and print this out. Okay, before I print it out, let me tell you exactly what is happening over here. Now, I'm saying, yes, I'm printing name, but then I'm selecting a particular index. Okay, and when I say index, this is the index. The index starts the counting from the letters. Okay, so letter K, that's the first letter, starts, the index of letter K is 0. The index of E is 1. Then N is 2, in that order. Okay, so clearly we can see that if I am to print this out, I'm going to see only K instead of Kenneth. Okay, so if I save this and run this program, now I have K printed out over here. If I'm to change the index to, let's say, 1, now let's do the counting. K is index 0, so E is going to be 1. So when I save this and run this program, we are going to have this printed out over here. Now let's assume I want to print out the last character in the string, and I don't want to bother myself counting 1, 2, 3, or starting from 0, 1, 2, 3 up to the last. And all that I can do is do a print of -1. Okay, so -1 is actually going to be the last character in the string. So if I should save this and run this, and clearly we can see that the last character is H, so we have H printed out over here. In that same way, if we should do -2, then clearly the counting will start from the last character. So the -2 index is actually going to be T. So if I should save this and run this program, we are having T over here. So that's with variables and selecting a particular index. Now what we can do is also to print a range. Okay, so in order to print a range, now first of all, if I should put a colon over here, what I can type in here is I can type the start number, and in here is going to be the start number. Okay, the end number, sorry. So what comes in here is the starting of the range. Okay, if I want to print a range, I type in the start index over here, and over here is going to be the end index. So let's say, let me type in 0. If I should type in 0 and save this, let me clear this out so that you see it properly. If I should type in 0, that means I want to start printing from K, because K is a character with a 0 index. So if I print this out, you are definitely going to see Kenneth. Now what if I start printing from the index number 1, which is actually going to be E? So I'm only going to see Nth over here. So if I should save this and run this program, clearly we see Nth being printed out over here. So like I said, this is the start index, and if we should leave it blank, it's going to print everything. Now let's say we want to print up to the 5th index. Okay, so let's actually start doing the counting. So we have, this is K0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the 5th index is actually T. However, if I should put 5 over here, the printing is actually going to start and going to terminate. So the 5th index, which is T, is not going to be printed. Okay, so it is only going to print E, N, N, E. Okay, so if I should save this and print this out, that's clearly what you have, E, N, N, E. And the magic is the ending index don't print out. Okay, the number or the upper limits don't get printed. All right, so if once again, I'm supposed to leave this blank. Okay, it's going to assume a position of 0, so it's going to start from K and going to end at E. Okay, so if I should print this out, this is exactly what we have. So this has to do with strings and kind of manipulating as far as the index and things of that sort is concerned. Now I'm going to comment this one out and look at some functions and methods. So let me say strange methods. And the first one you're going to look at is actually a function. So clearly we are working with a strange Kenneth. We are working with a strange Kenneth. So we can actually do some few things over here. Now we can print. Remember, we've done something like print type and we pass in the variable name. Okay. Now let me clear this one out. And when we print this, we are going to see that this is of a strange data type. All right. Now there's also something that we can do. We can actually print out, and we are going to call the len function. Okay. So the len function is actually going to calculate the length of this string. Okay. So it's going to count the characters and it's going to output the number of characters we have in here. So if I'm to print this out, we can see that we have 7 over here. Now, if we should spend time and count these characters, we are going to have 7. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So you have 7 over here. Remember, white spaces are also counted as characters. Okay. So if we are to give a white space over here and print this out, we are going to see 8 over here. If we are to give more white spaces and print this out, we are going to see 7, which is these characters plus 3 white spaces, adding up to 10. This can be very useful when, let's say, you are writing a program and that's going to validate a certain length of password, okay, as far as the user types in, things of that sort. And it's going to be very interesting when you can implement something like that. So the next ones we are going to look at are actually methods. Okay, so there's some kind of confusion between methods and functions. So functions are more or less for general purpose stuff. Okay, so for instance, this len is a function I can use on other data types. Okay, but then when we talk about methods are also functions, but then they are specific to a particular data type. So most of the things we are going to talk about here may apply to strange but not other data types, and we are going to see examples very soon. So we can actually do a print, and let's say we want to print everything we have over here. So we want to print name, okay, but then we don't just want to print name, but we want to print this name in all capital letters. Okay, so what we can do is we can call in the function, and we are going to do dot upper, or the method dot upper, I must say. So when we do print name dot upper, what are you trying to say is that yes, we want to print Kenneth, but we want to see everything in uppercase letters. So if I should save this and run this program, you are going to see Kenneth being printed out in uppercase. Then if your guess is as good as mine, we can do print, and we pass in the variable and call in the function or the method lower. Sorry, we call in the method lower. So if I'm to save this and also run this, we are going to see Kenneth and everything is going to be in lowercase. Now we can also have print name dot capitalize, like you saw. And if we should do dot capitalize, clearly we are going to have the first letter of each word capitalized. Okay, but then since this is just one word, it is not going to cause so much of a change. But let's say I have something like Kenneth is a good boy. So if I have Kenneth is a good boy and run this, we try doing small letter K and see. When I run this, we can see that yes, the first word we have over here has now been capitalized. So the next one we are going to look at is we can have a print, and we are going to say name dot replace. So we have a replace method, and as you can see, we kind of have a lookup over here. So it says replace. We need to pass in some parameters over here. So we need to replace some kind of an old something over here with something new. Okay, so for instance, we can say we want to replace Kenneth. Okay, so we are going to pass in the string Kenneth, and we want to replace Kenneth, so we do Kenneth, comma, and I want to replace it with the strange brony. So when I save this, first of all, let me clear this and comment these ones out so that we don't have any problems. All right. Now when I save this and print this one out, we can see that Kenneth has now been replaced with brony, and that's exactly the logic we are trying to implement over here. So let me just put these ones down. Since these ones are comments, they are not going to have any effects on whatever thing we are doing. So I'm going to say print, and I'm going to call name, the variable name, and I'm going to call the method split. Okay, so clearly we are going to split something over here, but then we have a lookup and it says this is the SCP is a separator. Okay, so we want to split this particular string. Okay, and we want the separator to be just space. All right, so we are going to return a list. Actually, we are going to look at list later on, but then this is what is going to happen. If I should run this code, we are going to see that this variable name has now been split. Okay, and the separator, as you see over here, is a space. So anytime it iterates through this particular string, anytime there's a space, it puts it in one particular character, or it takes it as a character of its own. And we have is, because there's a space between Kenneth and is, there's a space between, so there's like one word, this is another one word, and this another one word. And as you see over here, this actually returns a list. We are going to look at list later on, but then now the next one you are going to look at is a find method. So we are going to print this one, and we are going to say name dot find, and over here we are going to pass in some parameters over here. So what we are going to pass in is, we are going to pass in, let's say we want to check out something on Kenneth. Okay, so Kenneth we know is in this particular string, and we want to pass in, let's say, the letter K. Now this find value, okay, is going to return the index at which we first find K in the entire string. So if I should print this out, you can see that the index is 0. Now if I'm to, let's say, find G and save this, if I should print this out, the index is 30. Now if you have time, you can count. So let's say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And that's exactly what we find with the letter G. It's on the 13th index. Okay, now we can see that we have a number of characters repeating over here. So for instance, we have E repeating twice in this particular string. So if we are to print E, it is either going to be, okay, it is either going to be 1, okay, because K is 0, then you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's either going to be 1 or 4. And I can tell you that it is actually going to print out 1 because it is going to return the first instance for which it finds that particular character. So if we should print this one out, you can see that we have 1 over here, even though we have another 1 here. So that's essentially what the find method brings us. So the next one you're going to look at is a count method. So we can have a print, and we pass in name.count. So over here too, we are going to pass in a parameter, and we are going to pass in let's say the letter E, and the count method is going to count, or it is going to return the number of times the letter E appears in a particular string. So once again, let me clear this out and run this, save this and run this program, and we can see that we have 2 over here because the letter E appears twice in this particular string. Now let's also check for the letter O, and if your guess is as good as mine, we have 3 O's over here. So if we should print this one out, you can see that we have 3 being printed out over here. Now let's also try something very interesting. Now let's try the letter P. Clearly we don't have P anywhere here, and if we should do so, we are going to see that it is going to return a value of 0 because we have 0 P's. Okay, and if we are to just leave it blank, okay, that's the white spaces, we are definitely going to see that we have 4 white spaces. So we have 1 over here, 2, 3, and 4 white spaces as it is in the string. So the next ones we are going to look at is the start with and end with method. So we can do name dots and we call the start with, and once again we are going to pass in a parameter over here. So let's pass in Ken. Now this is what is going to happen. It is going to search through this name, okay, because we are passing or we are assessing the method start with. It's going to check if indeed the string starts with the word or the parameter we are passing in here, which is Ken, and it's going to return a boolean value, whether true or false. So in this case, clearly, if we should run this program, we are going to see true, because indeed the string starts with Ken. If we decide to also say start with K, it is actually going to return a true value, because indeed it starts with K. So it depends on what you are doing. But then if we should do KN, it is not going to it is going to give us a value of false, because clearly we are missing the start of it. Okay, and if we are to do, let's say, boy, it is also going to return a false value, because it is not starting with the word boy. Now for boy, so let's put out Ken over here, and if I'm to run this, we are going to get true. Now we can also have another method, and this one is going to be end with. So okay, so end with is also going to return, I mean, it's just the opposite of start with. So if you are to say Ken, let me comment these ones out. So if you are to say end with Ken, okay, clearly it doesn't end with Ken over here. So first of all, let me clear this and run this program. So you are going to see false, because it doesn't end with Ken. Okay, but then if you are to pass in boy over here and run this program, we are seeing true over here, because the string actually ends with the word boy. So string methods are not only limited to the ones I showed over here, but then these are the popular ones you are going to work with, and I think you'll be good with this. Most of them comes with experimenting and using some intuitive analysis in order to understand them. So for instance, this particular one starts with kinds of it kind of give you some kind of idea of what it is actually going to do one way or the other, and you can experiment the other ones in the Python documentation.